Hi there, Tyler here from the Weekend Warrior Show Recap Podcast, back to talk about the shows this last weekend. So Thursday, this was kind of an interesting weekend because we had 3 shows. Usually it's 2 or less, for the weekend. So this weekend was 3 shows. We had a Thursday night show, which was all the way up in Chicago, at a place called Houndstooth Saloon. Then Friday played over in LeRoy back at Houdinis Spirits, and Saturday we played at Clayton's Tap up in Morris. Sorry, that took me doing a lot of shows every weekend. It's hard to keep track of all of them. At least separate the names and all that, and where you drove. And anyway, so those were the 3 shows. First night Thursday in Chicago. Had some lessons here at Kidder. Ended up having to leave right after that. Got on the road probably around a little bit before 6. Maybe it was like right at 6:15. And we started driving. Most of the drive was okay. We got up to like the Shorewood area, and there was an accident on the interstate. So we ended up in... I said we were going to be like an hour later than we had planned on getting there, which, when you play at a new place, it's just you want to be there early and kind of feel the place out and see what it's going to be like and get a good chance to sound good. But anyway, so we were rushing, and there was an accident on the interstate, so we were thinking it was going to be like an extra hour late, so I was kind of freaking out, but we found an alternate route that saved us about an hour, so it's kind of a roundabout way of getting there. And I'm not really a huge fan of playing up in Chicago for a few reasons. I just don't like driving up there is one of them, because it's just all hard to... everybody's just on 9 already and just cutting in front of you, and I don't know where I'm going, so, I'm driving slower than everybody wants. But anyway, since it was nighttime, it wasn't too bad, and it was a Thursday, so, and it's always kind of pretty when you're rolling up on the skyline, pretty much of any city, but Chicago, since that's one I've been to a bunch of times, it always gives you kind of a certain feeling. But getting to the bar wasn't too bad. We ended up and had to park like 2 blocks away, which made it pretty rough to carry our gear in. And this was the first night of March Madness, which I found out later that night. But so, we got there, tiny stage, which is fine for, it was just me and Lo. So, being a small stage, we can make it work. But there was this huge DJ booth on the stage that if they would have been a little smaller or would have moved it for when we played, it would have been like a pretty decent stage. But since that took up most of the room, it was, our space was kind of small. And then they had said that they had their own sound, and they did, but it took me a little bit to locate. And of course, there were no floor monitors, and their mixer was ancient, but, it did the trick. I brought some little vocal monitors, which I was pretty happy with, because if I wouldn't have, when you're singing and it's coming out of speakers in front of you, you're behind the speakers, pretty much all you can hear is the low end, and it sounds muffled, and, there's no really real way to sing that well when it sounds like that. Or with that setup, so the vocal monitors definitely saved us. But anyway, so we rushed to start, and of course there was like a bunch of March Madness games on, so they kept pushing it back. We were supposed to start at 10, play 10 to 1, with a bunch of 2 15s and a half-hour break, but so they pushed it back a full hour. By the time there were still some games going on. And by that time, pretty much a lot of people had left. It was a pretty packed bar when we got there, but by the time we started playing, it was pretty, there was maybe 5 to 7 people. I don't know. Maybe there was a few more, 10 to 15, let's say, in the crowd, which at the beginning there were probably 25 to 35. And then as, that for our first set went, it just kept getting thinner and thinner. But This was the first show in a long time, well, this whole month, essentially, that I haven't felt like so held back by my voice. So I was sounding pretty good, and I was feeling pretty good. I probably still overdid it a little because my voice still wasn't like 100%, but it was the first time that like it felt like good to sing, and I could hear myself. I was hitting good notes and all that, and I ended up, and I feel like I was even like kind of in the zone talking wise, which usually isn't my strong point, because when you're on stage, you always just kind of sound like an idiot. It's really hard to be functional and say things that, I don't know. I don't know how people do it. I'm not very good. Usually I just ignore that there's a crowd. I'll say thank you and when people clap, and I'll, say who we are and stuff. But I don't really get too much into the talking because I think that's a really hard thing to do well. And especially, most of the time you can't even hear what the singer's saying because, it sounds kind of muffled and it's hard to hear anyway. So, but even that part of my game seemed a little bit more on than usual, and people ended up and started coming, like it started to refill up around like probably 11:45 or midnight. So I ended up and just played 11 to 1, no break, and I feel like I was reading the crowd pretty good, playing the songs I knew they'd want to hear. It didn't ever get crazy busy again, but the people that were there, I think, were into it. So it was fun, and the bar, they were happy with how it turned out. So, and this is the first show I've ever been. Well, I haven't been paid yet, but they're trying to pay it through an app called Square, which is like with the credit card machine or credit card you can swipe to the phone, but it's also kind of a PayPal type thing as well, I guess. But anyway, so I still haven't even been paid for that show, which is, kind of annoying. But it'll be nice when that does end up and happen. And then, we after the show, it was actually kind of cool. We walked around because the place we played at, Houndstooth Saloon, was in Wrigleyville. So we walked around, and there was this little restaurant we went to that was still open. Because by the time we were done on loading up the car, it was probably 2. And we were like, of course, I was starving. After every show, I'm pretty much ready to eat because I usually fast for about 8 hours up until the show. That's a whole another thing, just my pre-show ritual. But anyway, so we found, I think it was called Cheesy's maybe or something like that. It was like this little I don't know, kind of interesting restaurant that their main thing was grilled cheese, but they had a bunch of different styles of it and a bunch of different sides. So we went there, and they had a pretty cool theme. It was like old arcade games, old and new, I guess, but and these old these paintings that were like classic paintings, but done a little bit differently. It was really bright in there and lively, I guess would be the word. And then it was kind of cool to be walking down Chicago streets at 2 a.m. and there was just nobody around. It kind of reminded me of back when we were in New Orleans a little bit, because it just seemed like you could walk anywhere. And there were some places open. A lot of places were closed, but at that time it's kind of hard to find something open. But anyway, and then we drove back. We ended up and didn't get back till around 5 a.m. So left at, 6 p.m., got back at 5 a.m. So it was a long trip for sure. But, I always like to sleep in my own bed when it's an option. So that was preferable. And then, after we got home, it took a little while to actually get some of our stuff unloaded, get upstairs, get ready to just go to sleep and all that. So I probably didn't go to bed till 6 a.m., 6:30, something like that. And then we had the show in LeRoy the next day, which is usually a pretty laid-back show. It's kind of, Dave wanted to come because he works out of LeRoy, so our conga player came, and then Lo came to that one as well. Lo came to all the shows this weekend, and I don't know, I just wasn't my ankle's kind of been bugging me from doing all the stomping because I do the foot tambourines on my tap shoe with my left foot. I'm always stomping on hard wood with that to get kind of like a hand clap sound or a snare sound. And, you do, if you practice and you're doing shows with the foot percussion, eventually, and then when I'm working out, a lot of times I'm just jump roping. So it really like gets aggravated sometimes. So I was like, if there's a night to sit out foot drums, it was that one. So I ended up and didn't do the foot drums. And when we play at Houdinis, it's just kind of, I don't know, I get to play some songs that I wouldn't necessarily play most of the time, just try some stuff out. And then, not having to hold the beat down with the foot percussion kind of frees me up a little to get more, play more guitar solos and stuff like that. So, and just try some weird stuff. So play some covers maybe we don't know that well, or play some newer original songs. So, and overall that was a fine night. It wasn't like anything to write home about necessarily, but it was, it was fun. I don't know. I came in at kind of like a bad state of mind, and by the end of it, I was feeling pretty good. So that was good. Then Saturday up at Clayton's in Morris was pretty good. I kind of think I don't know. I definitely overbooked this month for me, being the way that my vocals have been. But this weekend was especially bad because I ended up doing a 2-hour show, then a 3-hour show, and then a 4-hour show. And Lo definitely sings and helps me, but a majority of the set's kind of on me. So by the time we got to the last set, my voice was pretty raw, and I had to do the longest set that night. And when we got there was some fundraiser going on, so it was hard to set everything up and get everything sounding okay. And the last time we played there, I just felt like I did like the worst sound that night I've ever done. So I was really looking to try to up the game a little bit, and I think we definitely did that. I just didn't bring the right stuff last time because it's a really loud bar, and with a 3-piece, I was using the JBL, and I just, as I've mentioned in the previous podcast, I've been leaning back towards the couple Yamahas I have, the 10-inch 700-watt Yamahas that are powered, because those have just been sounding so good. But it still kind of was off. It wasn't quite good right away, and it was one of those sets where you're setting up because you're trying to get all your stuff in, then you have to go find parking, and then you're trying to get everything set up by the time you're supposed to start. And I don't know, it's just one of those shows that you're setting up the PA system till the last possible point until you're supposed to start, which was 8:30. And I just didn't have it dialed in as good as I would have liked. Took us probably a couple sets for me to realize a couple dumb things that I should have been paying attention to that I didn't. And once I saw that stuff, it really cleared up the sound, which was nice. You could hear my guitar a lot better, and it was just a lot clearer. I had the main somehow got switched to like the monitor settings, which cuts out like all the low end. So once I switched it from that, and that wasn't until after like the second set that I realized that they were wrong. It really, really sounded good, and it didn't sound terrible before. We were still pretty good sounding, I think, but once I got it was just easier to sing because it was like I could finally hear myself the right way. And my voice really held out a lot longer than I thought it was going to, because going into that show, knowing that it was 4 hours, I just was not sure how it was going to end up playing those 2 shows and then that long one. But it ended up okay. And by the second hour, it was like the crowd was getting drunk enough to really, really be getting down. And they, pretty much for the rest of the night were just like really into it. I didn't really lose my voice till about the last 5 songs or so. And one of them I did was I did a pretty easy one to sing, so it didn't really affect it. And then the other 4 that I did were kind of a medley we do but I just moved the capo down a half step, so pretty much just sang it a half step down, and that saved that for sure. And, you know, like I said, it was only the last, like, 4 or 5 songs, and, you know, even though my voice was pretty well gone, I kind of was able to get through the songs okay enough, and those songs were all, like, crowd pleasers anyway, so the crowd was singing about as loud as the PA sounded, which was pretty cool. But anyway, so yeah, that was the shows there, and I think they all turned out good. We have 3 this upcoming weekend. I don't know how my voice is still rough, but I've given it 2 days since, you know, the 3 shows. I'm probably going to practice like a little bit today just to feel it, but it feels a little froggy. And this next week we have 3 shows also, but the first one's only like a 45-minute set at the Night Shop. We're opening for a band from Nashville again, so that'll be one of the things I'm talking about. And then Friday night we're up in Elburn, which is about a 2-hour drive. That's booked by the same guy who does the Kilkennys in Iowa, so this is a place we've never been. I'm sure that'll be an adventure for sure. It'll be kind of like the Chicago one this time. I think it's like a kind of up in that area. It's not quite Chicago, but a little maybe west of Chicago, kind of a burb. But and then Saturday we're back in Bartonville at Marshall's Tap. That was a really fun show last time, so I'm looking forward to that. I think Dave's only doing the first one. I'm going to talk to him, though. I don't really know for sure who's all doing what, but we shall see, I guess. And I'll talk about that next week, who came when. So I mentioned last week about an or I don't know if it's really announced, but it's just some issues we've been having band-wise. So I think we've decided that, well, kind of Blair and I have decided that he may be not going to play with us as much anymore. Just because he hasn't really been having a good time, it seems like. And it's, you know, it's a frustrating thing for me because I never know when he's actually going to show up, and then we don't practice, and then he doesn't like how it sounds. So at least now, it's only been a couple weeks since we've talked about it, but, I mean, there weren't really any harsh feelings or anything. He just has been frustrated a lot lately, I guess, and I mean, there's not really a lot I can do about the things that he's frustrated unless we just practice all the time, which I don't think he really wants to do. So he was saying he's going to book more solo shows. So that's kind of the thing I was going to mention. I'm not exactly sure how it's going to pan out necessarily, but that's the way it seems. So, and you know, if Blair's not playing, a lot of times that means that Kev's not that into it either. Because he likes, you know, more of the full band stuff. So as of now, I think it's just going to be me, Lo, and Dave as the core group. I'm not writing off Blair or anything like that. You know, if he feels like he wants to start playing again more, I mean, he can definitely hit me up. But I definitely think he at least needs to take a break for a while. Because he, like I said, he's been really frustrated with the way we sound, I guess, and you know, like I said, when we go to do, you know, his songs at practice, a lot of times I'm having to run through his songs with Kev or with Dave just so they can get kind of a feel for them. So it's like I'm trying to get them up to speed, but the only real way to practice and get better with those songs would be if everybody was there, and if there's something he didn't like, you know, to maybe just tell us, like when we're practicing, like, hey, don't do this, but anyway, so it seems like that's probably the best route for a while, at least. I'm not really sure, like, what'll happen, but it's just, you know, as you get older, it's harder to maintain, you know, these band relationships, and he's never really, I don't think, looked at it like his band. He always thinks of it as my band for some reason, even though I try to kind of keep him involved and get him excited about stuff, but seems like bottom line is too. I think he wants to be in a cover band and just do covers. He's not really that interested about original music or trying to record stuff. I mean, I don't think he's opposed to it. I don't think he's actively against it, but I think that's just kind of where he wants to place his energy. And I would like to be a band that does a good amount of original songs, and it's hard to get everybody to learn them if we're not practicing them and stuff. So anyway, I think it was kind of a mutual thing that he's tired of the way it sounds and tired of playing a full show and not being happy with it when he does make it out. And I would honestly be fine with that if he was just kind of happy about it, but he doesn't seem very happy about it. So because I'm pretty much like, you can come play any time with me. You can just show up pretty much, and I'll pay at least what I'm getting for a show that I booked. And because I enjoy playing with him, but that's just become fewer and far between. And then we're not practicing, so we aren't sounding great, and he's not playing as much. So I mean, when he was playing like once a weekend, sometimes twice in a weekend, every week, we didn't need to practice because we were really tight. But now it's been leaning a different direction, and when we're playing live, it's not really the best we could do, I don't think. So for both of us, I think it's a good idea to maybe at least back off for a while. Anyway, so that's the plan as of now. I hope that doesn't disappoint anybody, but I'm hoping to do more original music. I think that's Blair always pushed towards the covers, so it'll be good to be able to dust some of my older originals off, and then also some of the new ones that nobody's really taken the time to learn. I can play those out more, and be in a band with people that are more on the same page, have the same goal, and all that stuff. So hope, like I said, I didn't disappoint anybody too bad with that info, but I'm sure you can still catch Blair plenty of places if you're needing a Blair fix at some point. And anyway, I appreciate anybody who took the time to listen, and I will hopefully talk to you next time. Have a good one. Bye.